be sitting up here. I mean, because one, two, three, four. If we have to, we'll move the podium over. And we can put another chair right here. Here, too, and then we'll do it that way. Greetings, Convent, and happy Sunday. My name is Dornell Jones. I'm the president of the Convent Avenue Baptist Social Justice Committee, and we are going to get going and get started. We're supposed to be started at 12 o'clock noon. Thank you for sticking and staying for our 5th Sunday Voter Education Forum Project Series on Civil Rights. Our Deacon Chadwick is traveling to Maryland today, but I'm going to ask our chaplain, David England, to please open us up in prayer and to give us a scripture. Yes.
Father God, let's bow our heads or any stance that you choose to. Father God, in the precious name of Jesus, I humbly come before you as your servant, praying to you, knowing that all my help comes from you, knowing that the cause that we're here right now and the mission for social justice all comes from you, Father God. Father God, bless this forum, bless the speakers, and Father God, just bless our church and our neighborhood and our country, Lord Jesus. In the name of Jesus, amen. The scripture be Psalms 23, actually. Hallelujah. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me by the still waters. He restoreth all of our souls. He leadeth me into the paths of righteousness for his sake. Yea, though we all walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will never fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff will comfort me. Amen.
Thank you so much. That was David England, our chaplain. The Convent Avenue Baptist Social Justice Ministry has been meeting on every 4th Saturday of the month, and we have our officers, any of the members that have been coming to the meetings, would you please stand? David England is our chaplain. And I'm just going to say that justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. That's from Amos 5:25. We're going to wait for Gregory Hopkins to come back to lift every voice and sing. And as we are waiting for him, I'm just going to do the mission of the Convent Avenue Baptist Social Justice Ministry. We're defending democracy, empowering voters. The Convent Avenue Baptist Church Social Ministry is a grassroots, nonpartisan organization working to ensure everyone is represented in our democracy, also to expand and protect voting rights. We defend democracy and empower voters through activism, education, and information at the local, state, and also national levels. Meetings are held every 4th Sunday of the month, with the exception of August if we are in Washington, D.C., commemorating the anniversary of the March on Washington. This year, we marched on Wall Street. Members can join by simply coming to a Convent Avenue Baptist Church Social Justice Ministry meeting on 4th Sundays and signing the attendance sheet. We meet right across the street at 348 Convent Avenue. The Social Justice Ministry is a forum to discuss issues that affect the membership, as well as inform members about current legislation on the city, state, and federal level. The Convent Avenue Baptist Church Social Ministry is also a forum to recruit and train volunteers for political activities. The Convent Avenue Baptist Church Social Ministry hosts 5th Sunday Voter Education Forum Project Series. Let's give a hand to our controller who's coming in, Brad Lander, who's a part of our panel. Have a seat right here. No, take a seat right there, to the right, yes. We will be hosting guest speakers. voter registration drives we did at our mission fair and in front of the House of Justice, and we'll end the year with a Kwanzaa celebration right across the street at 348 Convent Avenue. We also assist families of gun violence, police brutality, fire victims in the community, Thanksgiving and Christmas days. Our professor of music, Gregory Hopkins, is here, so I would just like to ask everyone to stand for our Negro National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. We're gonna do it in unison unless we have a singer in the house. You wanna come? You need the mic?
Hymnals are in the back of the pews in front of you, number 477. Lift every voice and sing. How many verses?
Thank you so much, Gregory Hopkins. Today happens to be the 100th birthday of the late Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. And what I would like us to do is hold a moment of silence, but David England, you have some words that you would like to say about the late Shirley Chisholm?
Let's have a moment of silence for the great Shirley Chisholm. We all know who she is. We know the importance of such a pioneer, a trailblazer, someone before the Kamala Harrises and the Hillary Clintons. She paved the way. So let's have a moment of silence for her. Now I'm just going to briefly, I think everyone already know who she is. And her biography is very long and it's phenomenal, but I'll read a little bit about her. And let's just have a moment of silence right now, please. Amen. There are many accomplishments of Shirley Chisholm, being the first African-American woman elected to Congress, the first woman African-American to seek a major party presidential nomination. And please, don't take this lightly, because this is before Kamala Harris. This is a great thing. Not only was the first black woman to run, she belonged to the Congressional Black Caucus and the National Women's Political Caucus. During her 7 terms in the political caucus, As an advocate for policies that benefit the poor, minorities, women, such, and seek programs even for CUNY students, and established of a national holiday for Martin Luther King. She did that. Her political and legislative first African woman in Congress once again in 1968, became the first African American woman elected to the House. Advocate for education. After a time in government, she taught at Mount Holyoke College and lectured, continuing to advocacy for education and women's studies. She was a mentor for the future leaders, co-founded organizations like the National Congress of Black Women to support emerging Black leaders. And the most important thing that is really poignant to me is the book she wrote that I understand and is special to me. She wrote the book Unbought and Unbossed. And this time, with Project 2025 and the political climate in our country, we have to be unbought and unbossed. Shirley Chisholm.
Thank you so much. That was David England, our chaplain, and as I stated, today would have been her 101st birthday. She was born on November 30th, 1924 to January 1st, 2005, was an American politician who in 1968 became the first Black woman to be elected in the United States Congress. Chisholm represented New York's 12th Congressional District, a district centered in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, for 7 terms from 1969 to 1983. In 1972, she became the first Black candidate for a major party nomination for President of the United States and the first woman to run for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. Throughout her career, she was known for taking a resolution stand against economic, political, social injustices, as well as being a strong supporter of Black civil rights and women's rights. Born in Brooklyn, New York, she spent ages 5 through 9 in Barbados, and she always considered herself a Barbadian American. She excelled at school and earned her college degree in the United States. She started working early childhood education and became involved in local Democratic Party politics in the 1950s. In 1964, overcoming resistance because she was a woman, she was elected to the New York State Assembly. For years later, she was elected to Congress, where she led the expansion of food and nutrition programs for poor and rose to party leadership. She retired from Congress in 1983 and taught at Mount Holyoke College while continuing her political organizing. Although nominated for the ambassadorship to Jamaica in 1993, health issues caused her to withdraw. In 2015, Chisholm was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I would like to acknowledge, in just a moment, we are going to recognize the Honorable Inez Dickens, District Leader. You still District Leader? Yes. And former Assemblywoman and Councilwoman here in the 70th Assembly District in the Village of Harlem. In June, we had a Gun Violence Awareness Month Forum where we had about 5 panelists from Assemblymen Al Taylor, Jackie Rowe Adams, Aisha Shaku, Nicole Myers, and others. And we wanted to recognize you then because of the work that you did around gun violence and especially securing locations for Jackie Rowe Adams. And each person that was on that panel, they had such kind words for you. We had an award for you, but you weren't here, but we kind of stood and held it up. But you are here in person today. Thank you so much for being with us. So just in a moment, we're going to present that award before we do our panel. Our pastor, the Reverend Dr. Jesse T. Williams, Jr., is traveling in the state of Virginia. He is in Portsmouth, Virginia. So at this time, I'm going to bring up Noelle Manning, our Vice President of our Social Justice Ministry. She's been very helpful in getting our panelists here on today. We just now need help with getting our audience. But this, I understand this may be live streamed, so we'll be able to go back and look at it. But Noelle, please come forward. And she is going to speak to us. This month is National Military Families and Veterans Month. And we want to recognize our late Congressman Charles B. Rangel. He was my former neighbor or partner to Inez Dickens. That's why I said this would be fitting to award you on today. So at this time, we're going to ask Noel Manning to please come forward and give us words of the theme of this month.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
November is National Military Families and Veterans Month. In honor of the brave heroes who continue and who have served our country, this month's program will be a tribute to our veterans. So we will, state of purpose is November National Military Veterans Month. We honor the late Congressman Rangel, and we will be presenting at this time the Honorable Inez Dickens, District Leader, former Assemblywoman, and Councilwoman, with a proclamation for all of her great service to our city, state, country. Inez Dickens.
Please excuse me if when I'm reading it might be post-dated, but this was from last June. It is a sense of legislature to recognize and honor individuals whose dedication and leadership have made enduring impact. And the Honorable Inez E. Dickens, through her expansion career in public service, has exemplified visionary leadership and tireless advocacy, ensuring access to affordable housing, advancing equitable community development, and fostering economic empowerment throughout the state. And a lifelong resident of New York City, she attended Public School 133 and Julia Richmond High School, did undergraduate studies in real estate and economics at New York University, Howard University, and continued education for graduation in Chicago. Honorable Dickens began her tenure in service to the people in 1974 and served in that capacity for the next 32 years before winning a seat in the New York City Council in 2005, then again in 2009 and 2012. And as council member for the 9th New York City Council District, she served the communities of Central Harlem, Morningside Heights, East Harlem, and parts of Upper West Side, serving as Majority Whip and chair of the Committee on Standards and Ethics, and became the first African-American woman in history of the New York City Council to be appointed to positions of Deputy Majority Leader and chair of the Subcommittee of Planning, Dispositions, and Concessions. And after serving in the City Council for many successful terms, Honorable Dickens ran to represent the 70th District in the New York State Assembly, being sworn into office in January 2017. Whereas Honorable Dickens distinguished her career in public service spans decades, where she made an impact on the lives of countless residents through her service in New York State Senate, New York State Assembly, and New York City Council, reflecting an unwavering commitment to excellence in the community and public advocacy. And whereas Honorable Dickens broke barriers in each of her elected roles and as a community leader, helping to level the playing field and improve the quality of life for she represented and brings the resources to the community she served. And whereas Honorable Dickens' family legacy should not be overlooked. Her father, Lord E. Dickens, was a district leader and member of the New York State Assembly, and her uncle, Thomas K. Dickens, was an assemblyman and a justice on the New York Supreme Court, embodying the values of perseverance, leadership, and family. And therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Assembly Member Wright, recognize and honor Inez E. Dickens. It's dated August 30th, 2025, but it's from Jordan J.G. Wright. And also, we have a citation, and this is coming from our city councilmen, whereas a great city is only as great as those persons who have exemplary service to their communities, whether through unique personal achievement in their professional or other endeavors, or simply through a lifetime of philanthropy and community service. And whereas such service, which is truly the lifeblood of the community and the city, so often go unrecognized and rewarded, now therefore be it resolved that a duly elected member of the New York City Council, I recognize that Inez E. Dickens, former city council member, former state assembly member, always Harlem, we have an outstanding citizen, one whom is worthy of esteem in both our community and the great city of New York. And this is coming from our councilman, Yusef Salam, back in June 6, 2025. Yes, anyone have a camera to take a picture? Brad Lander, Assemblyman Days. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, yes, absolutely. And let's hear from our esteemed Assemblywoman, Councilwoman, District Leader Inez Dickens.
Good afternoon, family. First, all praises be to my Lord and Savior, from whom all blessings flow. I want to acknowledge the shepherd of this very historic institution, Reverend Dr. Williams and First Lady Williams. I want to thank the Justice Committee and particularly Dawn Jones for even thinking about giving me such an honor, particularly as we recognize Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, who in last year, the Black Caucus in the Assembly gave me the Shirley Chisholm Award. I've got to acknowledge my former colleagues in government, first in the City Council, but of course now Brad Lander is our controller, and we don't know what he's going to be doing in January of 2026, so I've got to acknowledge him, and yes. And my colleague in the New York State Assembly, which I didn't get a chance to serve with him but one term, but that's all right, I've known him and his esteemed family, that's Assemblymember Deus, because of the work that his father did and laid the groundwork for his son to follow in, and the entire panel for agreeing to be here this morning to discuss criminal justice reform and anti-gun violence. I want to also acknowledge that my sister Dolores is here, who has been my rock. And my family came up from North Carolina, my daughter and my grandson, Sandra and Jerry and Yvonne. Thank you so much. I've been blessed to represent Harlem. I first went to I first served as a district leader for years. Without remuneration, you don't get paid, but what it does, it lays the groundwork. It prepares you to be able to serve as an elected, because you learn your district, you learn who does the work and who does not. You learn which organizations really service and which do not. And it allows you to also know and get to understand the political process and the electeds that are in your district. And so I first was a district leader, but I then ran because I had the perfect storm. I had Congressman Charles Rangel, and I had Assembly Member Denny Farrell, all who were staunch supporters of mine. And as such, they laid the groundwork for me to run for the New York City Council to represent Central Harlem and the Upper West Side and some of East Harlem. And as such, I went in, and because I already had knowledge and because my family had the background, I went in and said, I want to be in leadership. And everyone said, oh, no, you're a freshman. I said, no, I'm a freshman because I just got here, but I'm not a freshman. And so as a result, I was in leadership from day one of stepping foot in the city council. And because of that, I was able to negotiate and navigate a very convoluted system that allowed me to bring to Harlem Hospital to negotiate that the mayor would bring, which was then Bloomberg, $60 million to finish the mural pavilion of Harlem Hospital. I also was able to bring the money necessary to build out Schaumburg and see to it that Schaumburg would be renovated and completed. And I also, at the end of my term, was able to negotiate the Studio Museum, which is going to be opening shortly, because they sat on two lots, a city lot and a state lot. And I had to figure out how I could get one or the other to let the other have it. But the important thing is the money that I was able to, resources that I was able to bring to my community. At the end of 3 terms, I had brought more income-targeted affordable housing to my district than any other council member in my class. But you don't do anything alone. I was able to do that because I had the support of my community. I had the love of my community. And everyone at the city council knew that I had a great and strong community of Harlem, and I also had the Lion of Lenox Avenue, which helps an awful lot. When I went to the New York State Assembly, and by the way, I also, the New York City Council is really the most important level in New York City. We don't realize it, but it is, because that's where the elected can target resources to their district. In the state, you have to think it a little differently because you have to think statewide, and of course the federal is different. But in the city council, you can target finances to your district to ensure that there is housing. And housing, most of the housing, comes out of the New York City Council. There's some that comes out of the state, but most comes out of the city council. So I always tell people, please, be careful, listen, see who you are electing. I don't care what district, who you are electing to represent you in the city council, because that is the most important in New York City seat we have, because it impacts upon housing, the affordability of it, and it brings resources. As a result of me understanding underwriting of real estate, because I come from a real estate background, I was able to, in any development that was being built in my district that had commercial or retail space, I made sure that they set aside square footage for them for a group that I chose that I know was doing work in the community, such as Harlem Mothers Save, such as the Baseball League of Harlem. I ensured that they got free space that they can occupy, pay no rent in perpetuity as long as they wanted to stay there. And that had never been done before in the city of New York. But that's because I understood real estate. And I'm going to tell you, with all due respect to my colleagues, a lot of my members of the other culture used to ask me, how come people up there, black people up there, vote for you and you come from a real estate background? I said, because black people up there, as you call it, understand. Now, he didn't say it, but others did, wanted to know how come they vote for you and you come from real estate. I said, because my community voted for my father, my uncle, who were all in real estate, all before me, but they felt that they got the best representation. And you can't do everything for everybody, but you try to do the very best you can for your community. You try to represent your community to the best ability, because that's who put you there. And you're supposed to work for the people. And at the New York State Assembly, not when I first got there, but after my first term, I went into leadership in the Assembly. And as a result of chairing small business, I was able to help small businesses. And my last term, the National Urban League, I negotiated with then Governor Cuomo for the National Urban League to come to Harlem to build 177 units with an AMI of 30% to 80%. And that had not been done by the state of New York in 60 years. And the AMI is what sets the rents. The 30% is more affordable for most of us in Harlem. The 80% was because so many of our children and our grandchildren are graduating from college, they return to the community, but they cannot afford to live there, and yet they don't qualify for very low income housing because they are making maybe $150,000 or $200,000 a year. So even though they cannot pay market, they do not qualify for the low income. And so I was able to successfully, and they didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but I found how I was going to subsidize that 30% AMI rental. And I was able to, because there's a lot of commercial and retail space, I had to negotiate with the community board to understand that it's the commercial space that was going to have to underwrite and subsidize for the rentals so that our people could live there. And I was able to negotiate for the 100 black men to pay less than market, and Jazzmobile, who gives free concerts throughout the summers, they got space and they paid no rent in perpetuity. And so I thank you, community, for having given me the opportunity to service you. As I left the Assembly, I was able to secure an additional $6 million for physical therapy at Harlem Hospital. And I was a little, it was a little self-serving because I go there myself. So it wasn't, but I'm grateful to all of you for given me the opportunity to service you for 25 phenomenal years. I was born and raised in Harlem. I've never lived anyplace else. I love Harlem, and I want Harlem to survive. I want our culture to be maintained. I want us to be able to afford to remain here. Those of us that decided we were going to stay here during the bad times, it's imperative that we and our generations after us can also remain in our community. But it's up to you to ensure that you elect the best that you have to represent you, to be the fighter, to be the warrior. And in 2025, Harlem has lost a lot of our warriors. That means we've got new warriors on the rise, such as my colleague in the Assembly, although he's in the Bronx. Jordan Wright took my place. He's the next warrior. Yusef Salam, he's the next warrior. We've got to have warriors, just like we've always had, because even though this is 2026 that we're approaching, you know what? It's more like 1940. Civil rights is being eroded. The economy is being downplayed. Unemployment is on the rise. And freedom is actually under attack. Don't be fooled and don't be bamboozled. Concentrate on who you elect because your life depends upon it. Who you elect. I hope that all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I pray that you will have a peaceful Christmas or whatever, a Kwanzaa, whatever you may celebrate. I hope that you have a wonderful one. And in 2026, may we understand the importance of unity in the district, because without unity, we fail. God bless all of you, and thank you.
Thank you so much, and let's give our district leader, assemblywoman, and councilwoman another round of applause, and thank you so much for being here with us. Now, when we were meeting, we were coming up with a topic to have a forum today, and it was civil rights. But we were unable to get the civil rights organizations here today, and we will definitely have the NAACP with us next month. But we thought that if we do a topic, something like the rules governing ICE, that maybe we could get some folks to come out, but this is a holiday weekend. But the reason that we reached out to Controller Brad Lander, we also reached out to Mayor Ross Baraka and Jemani Williams, Dr. Cantor, you're here from his office, is because these gentlemen are all elected officials, educated, and they were arrested by ICE. And this is the reason why we reached out to our controller today, and he was the only one that actually accepted out of the three. So we thank you so much for being with us, and that's why we're having you come up first. We understand you have to go, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's beautiful to be back at Convent Baptist. Thank you very much. What I have to leave for shortly is a press conference with the New York Immigration Coalition after yesterday's ICE raid down in Chinatown. So I apologize for speaking and running, but I'm honored to be back here. Of course, it's an honor to be here to honor my dear and brilliant and fierce former colleague. Give it up one more time for Inez Dickens. And she's right, you got some great young representatives now, like Assemblymember Landon Dace, and it is an honor to be here. Thank you, Noel Manning and Pastor Williams and everyone who's here. I want to recognize that today is Veterans and Military Families Day, and in addition to honoring the great Charlie Rangel service, I just want to say a word about this young woman who was killed in the National Guard and the other member who's in critical condition. I don't like that Donald Trump has deployed the National Guard to Washington, D.C., but that does not mean that our young people who are serving their country should be the victims and the targets of violence, and we have to find a way to call out political violence, to honor the lives of people who serve, and to bring peace to this country. And we can do all those things together. We don't have to choose sides of which lives matter. All, the lives of our immigrants matter, the lives of everyone in Washington, D.C. matters, and the lives of our veterans and military families surely matter. And it's also an honor to be here as a Brooklynite on the 100th anniversary of Shirley Chisholm. And I'm actually going to use her as a bridge to briefly talk about what's going on with ICE, because I was humbled that you guys invited me here to talk about this, because I've spoken to a lot of black New Yorkers who on the one hand value the rule of law and don't like to see what ICE is doing, and on the other hand have a legitimate set of questions. Hey, this country hasn't honored the blank check to African Americans. How come, how do we understand what we're due immigrant families while making sure that we stand up to racism and equality? And boy, Shirley Chisholm dealt with that because she was representing a Brooklyn district that had many African Americans and the American descendants of slaves, but also increasingly became the most beautiful Caribbean place outside of the Caribbean, with a lot of immigrant families as well, and navigated what is quite beautiful in Brooklyn, black communities that bring together both African American and Caribbean Americans and say we're not going to be divided against each other. There's shared history, there's different history. We have to stand up for each other, and I really believe this is one of those moments. The two reports I'm probably proudest of in my time as controller was the first one ever on the racial wealth gap in New York City that found the gap between the median household income of a white household in New York, $277,000, is 15 times the median household net worth of a black household in New York, about $19,000. And that speaks to fundamental injustice, that racial wealth gap. And the other report we did was called Facts Not Fear, that looked at immigration in New York, and that it has been something that has actually worked to help families rise together. It is not the fault of people fleeing war and poverty and violence in Senegal or Guinea or Ecuador or Venezuela that we have a systemic racial wealth gap. That's the fault of white supremacy and a system that has upheld it. And it is not the fault of these immigrant families coming in, that housing prices are rising, or that wealth is being withheld, or that black small businesses can't get access to the businesses that they deserve. And I've tried to show that in the controller's office, growing by $10 billion, the assets under management by black and Latino and women and Asian managers, and every other way we can. And I've been going down to 26 Federal Plaza about once a week since June. And you saw when those ICE agents arrested me back in June and separated me from Edgardo, who has been deported back to Venezuela, where he's still trying to get out of because he fears for his life. And I've been back week after week after week in the tradition of nonviolent civil disobedience and witness bearing, watching our neighbors who are showing up when they're supposed to. They get court papers that say show up. They go in front of the judge. The judge says, I'm going to schedule you a date for your next hearing. Go get a lawyer or come back for your hearing on your asylum application, or maybe I'll transfer your case to Newark because you moved to Newark. And they walk out with a piece of paper, having done what the judge said, with their next date, only to be grabbed by ICE agents in the hallway with no respect. They don't identify themselves. They're wearing masks. They don't give a warrant. They don't say why they're arresting people, especially people who just had their court case, and they have no criminal history or record. We just sat in the courtroom and watched. And yet they're ripping. I saw a woman who was 8 months pregnant have her husband ripped from her and detained. Another sister who saw her brother detained, sometimes whole families. But the thing I just want to end on, because I think it speaks to how we can put things together for New Yorkers, is for the last couple of months, the times I've gone down that have been the most moving are for young people with what's called special immigrant juvenile status. These are young people who entered without their parents because maybe their parents were killed. One kid was from Sudan, and his family had been killed by the RSF because they're Zagawa, a black group, also Muslim, but killed by other Muslims, and he fled here. So he's without his family. He's eligible for this special immigrant juvenile status. I've been down with 6 young people who have that status, and 2 of them were from Latin America, but 4 of them were from Africa. They're black young people trying to find their way to safety and security in New York City. A young man named Ibrahima from Guinea, a young man named Abdur Rahman, also from Guinea, and this young man Yasser that I mentioned from Sudan. And he's the one that kind of really made me smile the biggest because I accompanied him to his hearing in July, and thankfully he had his hearing and he was able to walk out. And I was talking with him because it was just after July 4th, and he was trying to understand why we eat hot dogs on July 4th. And I said, Yasser, I don't know why we eat hot dogs on July 4th, but that's a national tradition in our country. We have Thanksgiving, we eat turkey. On July 4th, we eat hot dogs. And I said to him, what's the national food in Sudan? And he said, well, the national food in Sudan is jollof rice. And he said, I used to think that Sudan had the best jollof rice, but now, since I've been living in the Bronx, while I'm going to school and seeking my status, I think that they might have the best jollof rice from Guinea. And I laughed with him because I know there's a big debate amongst who has the best jollof rice. But you know what I thought is, Yasser, you're becoming a New Yorker. Like it's only in New York that the Sudanese decide that the Guineans have the better jollof rice. That's what happens here. When people become New Yorkers, we learn from each other. It's not always easy. We got injustice to fight. But what happens here is the powerful idea of what it means to be in the city with that Statue of Liberty out in the harbor, with the tradition of lions like Charlie Rangel and Shirley Chisholm and Inez Dickens and the next generation. And we're going to show Donald Trump that we know what's what, that we're not going to be divided from each other, that African Americans and Caribbean Americans aren't going to be divided from this generation's asylum seeker, that Jews like myself aren't going to be divided from Muslims, that we're going to call out the genocide we see in Gaza, because that's not being done in the spirit of Judaism or in the spirit of what we know, the justice and peace we need in the United States. So I've been proud to be down there. I'm going down right now to stand on with the New York Immigration Coalition. I'll be back in immigration court this week. And after my arrest, I went back with another 100 New Yorkers, got arrested in civil disobedience, and they offered me a adjournment in contemplation of dismissal, an ACD, but I rejected it. And I said, I want a trial, because the crime is not where we were sitting in singing songs in the elevator lobby on the 10th floor. The crime is what ICE is doing to our neighbors on the other side of that locked 10th floor door. So thank you very much for having me up here this morning as part of your ministry. God bless you. God bless Convent Baptist. God bless Reverend Williams. God bless all of you. God bless New York City, the greatest civil rights city and the greatest immigrant city the world has ever known. And God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being with us, and we will keep you in our thoughts and prayers as you're out there fighting on the topic of ICE.
Thank you. And I'll let you know what I'm doing next, too. I'm done being controller in a few weeks, but you haven't seen the last.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by, and we know you're out there doing the work on a Sunday afternoon. Okay, at this time, I'm going to bring up Assemblyman Landon Deus of the 77th Assembly District. I don't know if he remembers, we met at the Harlem Shark Bar. We were at a debate watch party, and also I lobbied with District Council 37. So I'm so glad you're with us on this afternoon. And I just remembered as I was sitting there in our meeting, we also, are you able to speak to us about how a bill becomes a law? Sure. That was something that, remember in our meeting that they asked. So we welcome you to the podium. He actually worshiped with us on this morning. So you've been here since this morning, and come on up and give us a few words on how a bill becomes a law, civil rights, and I know you do work around the veterans. I remember you coming to the House of Justice speaking to us.
Good morning. Already was at the church already, so we did that part first. I want to recognize Inez Dickens. Every story has a beginning and an end. And 16 years ago, my story began with, I used to call her Madam Dickens. You're going to probably see this happen again. 2008, Obama won. Young people were inspired. We just had Zohran Mamdani when young people were inspired. You can see a lot of young people running, and I'm proud of that. And I want that to happen. I have no issue people running for office. I'm sure a young person might run against me, and to me, it's democracy. Let the best person win. 16 years ago, I got my first tough political lesson from Ms. Dickens, which she kicked my butt in 2009 primary, but I learned valuable lessons. All defeats aren't necessarily a loss. And the reality was, I wasn't ready. Being a city council person, an assembly member, a senate, you can have great ideas, but if you don't have actual facilitated skill sets that can allow you to be an effective leader and legislator, you can't do the job. You might have great ideas. And there's some young people with some amazing ideas, or young or older. But if you can't bring those ideas to the table and how to make them practical, use common sense to get them to work, it doesn't matter. And what happens if you have these great ideas, but you don't create any real results, you create tremendous disappointment. And so what happened after I lost, I ran a campaign in Miami, Florida right after that. And then I worked at the Police Athletic League in East New York. So I got an understanding of how funding for our nonprofits worked in one of our hardest hit sections in East New York. Then I went to law school, right? And now being a lawyer, that gave me another fundamental understanding of how to write legislation, how legislation writes. Because you might have this great idea, but it might be unconstitutional. It might go against regulations or a law that might already exist. And now as a lawyer and having that experience in corporate legal experience has allowed me to be a more effective legislator. She mentioned real estate. Prior I had construction experience, but afterwards I was on the board of HCCI, Harlem Congregation Community Improvement. Then I was on the board of Mid-Bronx Desperados in the Bronx. So now I have this fundamental understanding of how affordable housing works. And it's not simple. As she said, she used commercial real estate to underwrite the residential because the days of $500 rent, let's just be honest, it's gone. I hate to say it like that. So we have to figure out other ways to finance the real estate, how to restructure those complicated things. With all that said, that all also impacts our veterans. Veterans, my father served from 1960 to 1963. We already mentioned Congressman Rangel, who served honorably in the Korean War. David Dinkins was probably the proudest Marine you could ever meet. There was no prouder Marine than the Honorable Mayor David Dinkins. That man was Marine through and through. So I always was taught to respect my veterans. 65% of our veterans are doing extremely well. And we have, fortunately, someone from the State Veterans Services here, but 35% of our veterans are struggling. And so on September 30th with NAN and with my church and a couple others, some here or there, we did a rally to end veteran poverty. Currently, right now, we spend $55 per veteran. There's 650,000 veterans throughout the state, 150,000 in New York City. We spend about $54 per veteran in aggregate. My hope, I'm asking the governor for $20 million additional dollars to raise that to about $74, $75 per veteran. And as Madam Dinkins knows, asking the governor for $20 million is not easy, so you have to build a coalition. So I'm working with the chair of Veteran Services, Steve Stern, obviously Speaker Hasty, who is one of the most honorable men that you can work for, and I'm glad to have him call him my speaker. And we're working towards those things, because a lot of those veterans, it's not about black or white or Latino, but I believe if you serve this country, if you put everything on the line for this country, there's 4 things you deserve. You deserve dignity first and foremost. You deserve an affordable place to live. You afford a job or the ability to have a job or education opportunities. And most importantly, you have the right to live the rest of your life with dignity. And every veteran who served our country deserves that. And that's what I'm going to fight for. Now, in talking to civic engagement, when I want these young people to vote and young people to be engaged, I want them to realize every time they don't vote, I tell them it costs us about $10,000. Because it's a very simple equation. Right now, Brooklyn, I represent the Bronx. Right now, we have the lowest voting per capita. Brooklyn and Manhattan are 1 and 2, neck and neck. Brooklyn, if you look at House Warren 1, Brooklyn really brought it, you know what I mean? They just voted at a number. So let's say I'm Governor Landon Days, right? And I want to win, or I'm trying to focus on where I'm gonna put money. I'm gonna look at the districts that have the most votes, and I'm gonna put more resources in those areas. So by us not voting and not be engaging, even though we don't think it matters because it impacts our fiscal impact. If we get more votes out of Harlem and the Bronx and the black sectors, they have to focus on this, because anybody running for mayor, citywide, statewide, has to put more focus on those districts. Go to Upper West Side. They get everything they want, because why? The Upper West Side is the highest voting section in the country. Not New York, but country. That's why the Upper West Side gets one. Lower Brooklyn right now is getting something similar. Because if you're the mayor, if you're the governor, you don't want to create enemies in those areas because they vote at such a high density. You have to listen to them. And so what happens is it's a pie, right? It's finite. So they get a bigger piece of the pie, we get less, because they understand how the political structure works. They put their money where their mouth is. They know how to focus, unite, and make those arguments. Another thing that goes down to what she mentioned on the infrastructure, judicial delegates are also based on how many people vote in governor elections. So that means certain parts of Manhattan have more say on judges in Manhattan County, New York County, Bronx County, because of how many people vote. And those sections go to the Upper West Side, Upper East Side, because they vote more than we do uptown. So those are your judges. And I passed a bill that expanded the number of civil court judges by 28, including 3 in Manhattan, 3 in the Bronx. And that impacts, especially in family court, because how many of our kids are in those systems, dealing with ACS, OCFS, and all of those things, right? So going back to the bill, on the legislative side in the Assembly, there's 2 houses, the Assembly and the State Senate. The Senate is the upper house, we're the lower house. We're the People's House, there's more members in the Assembly. When you write a bill, it has to age for 3 days. unless we get a letter from the governor, a priority from the governor that can cure the aging process. After that, we have to debate the bill on public record, right? At that point, the Assembly can vote for a bill, and then the Senate. Sometimes the Senate bill, if it's not same as, they can be two separate bills, and then we try to bring them together to become one bill, right? Then the governor has to sign it. However, the governor can veto it, or there's something called charter amendments, which happens a lot. So you can think you have this great bill that you both signed together, we won, we did all of this, and then the governor's like, there's some changes I want to make. And then suddenly in January, when we go back to session in January, there's some bills that we passed and we thought we had an agreement on, but the governor's going to ask for charter amendments, and or she'll veto it, right? On the flip side, if she does vote for it, then that can become law, and then sometimes if it has regulations, it will have an effective date. That date will say when the bill comes into effect, and sometimes what you have is called promulgation of regulations. So for example, I worked on the legalization of cannabis, right? You might have a law that passes, but then within that law you have regulations, which we have a body, right? So she works for the Department of Veteran Affairs. If I have a bill that might impact their regulations, they would have to do regulations, and then there's a public period on the regulations, and where you will get to testify and talk about the regulations to make recommendations, and then through those recommendations, the regulations would be promulgated. And that's important because you have the legislation, which we all can think about, but the regulation side is equally, if not more important. Because that's where the devil's in the details, as they say, right? That's when they can make some subtle changes, because like advocates will come up and we'll get the legislation done, but that's where the lobbyists make their money, is in the regulations, because they make these little small changes and you have no idea how it can impact the law. So one thing I want people to understand is that this job is not easy. When you elect someone to this position, I do something really crazy apparently. I read every bill that comes to my desk that I'm asked to vote on and co-sponsor. And sometimes I'm up to 2 o'clock in the morning. A lot of people don't do that, and I'll be honest, in our chambers, I do. Because I don't want to be caught saying, Landy, you voted for this bill, but did you see what happened on page 35, line 17, part B? Why did you vote for this? I'm not going to be caught lacking, as the kids would say. And so I do take this job extremely seriously. Sorry if I talked way too long. The last thing I'll talk about too, I'm pounding the table on census. It's coming up in 2030. You saw Trump is trying to do redistricting. They understand that the power is in Congress and in the judicial branches. We need to make sure we focus on the census in 2030, just like voting. Our civic engagement is a building-to-building, block-to-block necessity. We have to work together and realize if we do those things, we can protect Harlem. We can protect our veterans. We can protect deed theft, which I worked on, and making sure that black and brown homes aren't stolen. We can do the things that makes us sure that we have the proper representation. And if we do that together, we can get the things that we need done in our community. So again, my name is Landon Days. I'm the Assembly member of the 7-7. Thank you, Convent Baptist Church. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Landon Days, D-A-I-S. Yes, ma'am. Sure.
This is how we're going to do it. We're going to have all the panelists present, and then we'll take questions. Well, no, only reason.
Yes. Thank you. So getting stuff, I'll just answer one.
So we're going to do the question and answer after
Sure.
all the presenters. So gentlemen, you can come up. You're from Social Justice Veterans? Yes. You come up and have a seat.
I'll just answer that one part. Communication is key. So I paid for social media advertising, and that's part of civic engagement, is understanding where to reach people where they're at. Something that Zoran did at a new level, I'm what's called a triple prime voter. Anyone know what a triple prime voter is? I know you know what it is. But a triple prime voter means someone who basically votes in at least 3 primaries within the last 3 years, right? So what that means is you're a consistent voter. So when I look at you ever notice that some people get text messages and emails from elected officials a lot more than someone else? I get text messages from everybody. Because when they look at my voting record, I think since I turned 18. Since I was 18, I've only missed 3 elections since I've been 18, I think. So they know that this guy votes, so we're going to send stuff to that person. What Zoran did was he didn't go after triple primes. He knocked on doors on 0 and single primes. I mean, these are people who vote maybe just in presidential elections or don't vote at all, but they were registered, right? And he reached out. That took a lot, though. The organization, the amount of time that took was not easy. And it's painstakingly painful time to do it. But we needed to go back to old school, knocking doors, going into the community. So I'm in my district, I'm in NYCHA, I'm in River Park Towers. There's people in my district and other electors, they won't even go to River Park Towers. They're like, you go there? I'm like, yeah, I'm in there. I'll give my information, landing dates, easy to find. But I wear my suit, and so, you know, I try to represent myself in a way, and I try to be authentic, right? But we got to get back to really reaching people and pulling them out. And veterans are the same thing. I've learned with the veterans, they have this pride, and at the same time, this distrust of government. So I need to get them to believe again in an elected official. And I've seen that with Kevin Megan and some other veterans who've been in Commander Cortez, that I'm slowly building their faith again in some elected officials, because they see me meeting them where they're at. I just went to the Veterans Breakfast, you know, last week with my boys, with my kids. I wanted my kids to see it. So we need to meet people where they're at and not just expect them to show up just because, oh, I'm an elected official. A title is a title. It means nothing if you're not doing something with it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us this morning and this afternoon, and for the information that you shared with us. Now, November is National Military and Veterans Families Month, and yes, November is designated as National Military and Veterans Family Month. This month honors the service and sacrifice of military families and veterans, recognizing the unique challenges they face and encouraging Americans to show their support. The observance was established in 1996 by the Armed Services YMCA and is proclaimed annually by the United States government. Focus, it is a time to appreciate and recognize the sacrifices made by both veterans and their families, including spouses and children. Government support. The month is recognized by the United States government, and organizations like the American Red Cross provide resources and support. How to show your support. You can show appreciation by participating in events as we're doing on this afternoon, donating to organizations that support military families, or volunteering for local initiatives that help them, such as the Convent Avenue Baptist Church Social Justice Ministry and the National Action Network Political Action Committee. And what we're going to do as a committee to be proactive, there have been quite a few fires in the city and also the counties. Unfortunately, I had a hit-home fire. I have a roommate who happens to be the youngest daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz, who's been staying with me for, I would say, over 2 years, who was in a fire on 86th Street. And then a friend of mine, just on Thanksgiving Day, was killed over in Orange, New Jersey. She and her sister were trying to rescue their dad, and both sisters transitioned. And that was very hard to get that news. I was in tears in my cubicle. I work in downtown Brooklyn. So that's something that I would like to do as a ministry, that we maybe get gift cards and send it to these families that are affected. And if anyone else knows of any families, just let our ministry know. So at this time, I'm going to ask our veterans to come join on the panel from Social Justice. That is Minister Ray Wade Sr. and Tim James, Black Veterans for Social Justice, to please join on the panel. And I would like to ask Dr. Leslie Branch, the New York State Department of Veterans Affairs, I'll do ladies first, if that's okay with the gentlemen, to give us a presentation for November's National Military Family Veterans Month. And I'd like to ask, is there anyone in the audience that is a veteran, that served in any military, okay, Army, Navy, or anyone who's a family member, like a spouse, a widow, or how about children of military? Okay, my dad served in the Army. Okay, I really wanted to have more people that were a part of the military here, but I thank you for the audience that we do have, and I'm going to now turn it over to our panel.
Good afternoon. Giving honor to God, who is the head of my life, honoring the angel of this house and his wife, I bring you greetings on behalf of Reverend Viviana DeCohen, Commissioner of New York State Department of Veteran Services, and as someone undercovering, I bring you greetings from Morning Star Full Gospel Assembly, where the Bishop Reuben Spence Thompson is the senior pastor. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the space to share. So, as a former dean and professor, lecture is quite comfortable for me, but I'm not speaking at you. I'm speaking with you. I'm here in community. And one of the things I'd like to do is frame why we are here. And when I was asked to present, they first, I think, put the request to Reverend DeCohen, who is the commissioner, but being that it is Veterans Month, most of the department has been across the great state of New York participating in and hosting Veterans Month programs. So why are we here? We are here because we have been invited to be here. November is National Military Families and Veterans Month, and I view that, and I believe most of us do, as a time to honor the strength, the sacrifice, and service of those who serve and those who stand beside them. So, give yourselves a hand. Service is the highest call to which one can answer. I myself am a proud United States Navy veteran, and thank you. You know, and it's interesting because there is a picture that crops up in the head of folks when you ask them who a veteran is. No one would ever think that I'm a veteran. The concept of who a veteran is an older, white man, when in fact the fastest growing demographic of veterans in this country happens to be women. All right, so Convent Avenue Baptist Church has a long and proud legacy of faith-rooted social justice. So Convent, give yourselves a hand. And they also pair that with community empowerment, right? Because we understand that no one's coming from the hills to rescue us. We have to put our shoulder to the proverbial plow as well. And they have a rich legacy of voter engagement. And so today's forum, I Advance, brings together three powerful threads: the experience of veterans and their families, the ongoing struggle for civil rights and voting access, and the legacy of Shirley Chisholm, whose 101st birthday we honor, in fact, today. So let's give it up for Shirley Chisholm. So moving forward, veterans, military families, and civil rights. There is a through line. There is a thread that binds them together. Veterans do not return home to separate issues, right? The issues that we see are the issues that impact us all. Veterans return home to the structures shaped by policy, right? So someone spoke about poverty. I think it was Brad Lander. Poverty is actually a policy choice. Oh, and by the way, in addition to being a veteran, I'm a classically trained policy scholar. I hold a PhD in public and urban policy, political science, and some of those other things. And so the issues that we see, that we are engaging with, and that we are facing are choices, right? And as a policy professional, when we frame things, we need to look at them through the lens of the political economy, right? Economics asks three questions. What are we making? How are we making it? And who are we making it for? And politics is simply this, the power to decide who gets what, when, and how. And so if we follow the economics of a thing, we can usually get to the root of it. Veterans, again, don't come home to separate issues. They come home to the structures that are shaped by policy. Those issues include housing, healthcare, employment, education, mental health, and civic engagement. And to the point that was made by my co-panelist, just because you have a title, we honor titles for sure, but you need to create transformational relationships with people. You can't just show up at their door like it's an emergency and say, we need you to do this, because how something is packaged will make all of the difference as to whether you draw someone or whether you repel them. Right? And military families and veterans, and especially Black and brown veterans, often face barriers in benefits access. And those include disparities in disability claims approval, higher rates of homelessness, and two words that to me should never be in the same sentence are veteran and homeless. Right? Unequal access to GI Bill benefits historically and presently. Right? A lot of times people want to refer back to what happened when the veterans came home after World War II, after World War I. We have that happening in the 21st century, y'all. Right? And it should not be. Structural challenges in mental health support. As a policy scholar, there's something that I learned about expectations and what people want to put on you, right? And I want to speak to my sisters in the audience. Have you ever heard of something called the Black woman schema? Well, let me tell you about it. The Black woman schema is a set of ideas or beliefs that are put upon Black women such that we adopt it and try to live up to it. And the schema says that Black women are strong. We are strong. Nothing bothers us. We don't feel pain. We can do it all alone, right? And because that schema is out there, we foolishly, in some instances, try to live up to that, right? There happens to be a schema about non-Black women and that they are damsels in distress and they need to be protected at all lengths, right? And so what I want to invite us to do as women of color is not try to live up to the Black woman schema. Rest as resistance. Self-care is important. You cannot pour from an empty cup, right? And so voting access and civic participation are part of the continuum of care for veterans. And so when veterans vote, they advocate for equitable VA funding, right? When veterans vote, they vote for stronger mental health programs. And though I am a veteran and did not have to participate in the combat, theater combat, mental health issues happen at any time during military service. Military personnel are asked to do some things that a civilian would never see in a lifetime. Fair housing is something that the veteran votes for. Economic mobility and justice reform impacting the communities that we live in. Voter education as civil rights imperative, right? In Convent, you need to give yourselves another round of applause because you're doing it, right? Voting is not simply a civic duty. It's a civil rights tool. It's the lever, right, that grants you access to power, that gives you choice in some instances, that shapes the resources available to veterans and the military families. And so it is vitally important, that whole census thing. Yes, because if you're not counted, you don't count, right? We stand in the lineage of the Black church tradition where faith and freedom are intertwined. When we vote, we protect our communities. I happen to be a PK. The forum continues Convent Avenue Baptist Church's Social Justice Ministry Project series on voter education, focusing on understanding the stakes in local, state, and federal elections, how resource allocation impacts veterans and their families, and how voting protects civil rights, housing, health care, justice, and education. Civic participation is a form of community care, right? It's okay to care for ourselves. We, in fact, need to put ourselves first, right? And that's especially to my sisters. We are always working to make sure everybody else is okay, and then we have nothing left to do for ourselves. Shirley Chisholm's 101st birthday, a legacy for veterans and voters. Born on November 30, 1924, I believe, yes, we would be celebrating her 101st birthday this year. And as one of the earlier panelists indicated, she stood for unbought and unbossed leadership, insisting that our democracy must include the marginalized, veterans, women, Black and brown communities, and the poor. She championed legislation to expand education access, safety nets, social safety nets, and healthcare equity, and economic justice. That rattles people when you start calling for economic justice, right? Her legacy and her advocacy laid the groundwork for the modern military family support systems and social programs that veterans rely on today. Her example teaches us democracy is strongest when all voices are included. She taught us that representation matters. She taught us that voting is a tool to reshape systems. And she taught us that courage and truth-telling are essential forms of service. So connecting the themes, why this moment matters. At a time when voting rights are under pressure nationwide, forums like this safeguard our democracy. And I'm happy to learn that this is being live streamed because even though the House isn't full to the brim, it's being carried via the airwaves, and because it is being recorded, it will last in perpetuity. And as we honor veterans and military families, we must also work for policies that ensure their dignity. Dignity. It is because people like me have raised their right hand to serve that we even have the freedoms that we enjoy today. Right? Policies that ensure their dignity, systems that deliver what was promised, right? Our word should be our bond. And so if we are promised something as a veteran, the line shouldn't keep moving in the sand when we come home. Communities that welcome and support them. Cultural competence, as the veteran is concerned, is very important. It's okay to not know what it means to be a veteran, but it is never okay to remain in ignorance. And it is never okay to assume the voice of the veterans. When we make assumptions, we make something out of ourselves, right? And we don't want to do that. So, Madam Chisholm's birthday reminds us that we are the inheritors of a legacy of bold, justice-driven leadership. The question before us today, I pose to you, how will we use our vote, our voice, our collective power to build the future veterans and military families deserve? You don't have to answer that now. The call to action: register, re-register, verify, and help others do the same. Support veteran-serving organizations such as Black Veterans for Social Justice, and advocate for equitable policies. Draw inspiration from Shirley Chisholm. Service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on earth. Leave today with a renewed commitment to civic engagement, to community empowerment, to social justice, and to honoring those who served by serving our democracy. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to ask the last two gentlemen, that's Minister Wade Sr. and Tim James, that's the Black Veterans for Social Justice. Is that Reverend Ray Wade Sr.? Did you want to go first? You guys want to stay here or come to the podium?
I'll come.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. I represent Black Vets for Social Justice. We're located in Brooklyn, 665 Willoughby Avenue. I've only been with them for just January will be 2 years. When I got there, if you see my shirt I'm wearing, talks about suicide. We have a contract with the VA. It's called Staff Sergeant Fox. And the reason for the contract, the VA could not reach the community to help veterans in need. So my group, it's only a few of us, we have a contract to work directly with suicide cases. So at our place, we also serve food every Wednesday. We do several things like help with apartments, help with veterans that's leaving, got out of jail, don't have nowhere to live, need a job. So we do a lot of things over there. But I mainly wanted to talk to you about something that holds dear to me. About 24 years ago, I started working with the VA as a volunteer. In between jobs or when I was free, I would go and do PTSD groups. I would go do anger management groups. I worked with them for maybe 10, 12 years. Then I moved on to working with Manhattan VA, Brooklyn VA, and Queens VA, all of them. And I did outreach to help all the communities. After that, I wind up, or should I say before that, I wind up as a chaplain, 9/11, which was very interesting because they needed a lot of help. And the reason why I mentioned that is because at doing 9/11, I was the only Black chaplain working the midnight tour. And I had to deal with nothing but Caucasian folks. And it was not easy. I stood back when they was going to fight each other, the police and the fire department, and I came forward when somebody was crying. That's how I did my job, because I couldn't get involved with all of that. But I stayed in the background, and those that wanted some comfort, wanted to talk to somebody, I was there for. So that didn't stop there. I went on and worked at Rikers Island for 3 or 4 years, and we did groups there. Just so happened I got the Veterans House. That was my house. And really, really worked hard with them and with the other people. I found out something that we don't do today, and this is why I'm here. We don't pay attention to what they're saying. Are you in jail? You can't tell me nothing. Are you smoking crack? You can't tell me nothing. You drinking? You can't tell me nothing. Listen, brothers and sisters, they have something to say to us. Sometimes it's not good if they're not sober, but if you got the time, catch them sober. Catch them in between and listen to what they have to say. I do a group that I started at Philemon. Before I even started that group, I was with, oh God, what's the name of it? Another group that started at the VA, and what we did was we worked with the people from Brooklyn, and I don't know if anybody know of Charles Hall from Brooklyn VA. He's on his way out to retire. How does his name slip my mind? It's a veterans group. But nevertheless, I started a group called Philemon. Philemon is in the Bible. The thing that came to my heart was forgiveness. Sometimes we can't move because we can't forgive. I'm talking about veterans and regular people. Sometimes we can't be able to help somebody when the crisis is there because they're screaming and yelling. Well, let them scream and yelling. When they're through, now is your chance. But because people of color are screaming and yelling, we don't get the opportunity to give them the opportunity that they need. It's called anxiety. When that anxiety goes all the way up, all hell breaks loose. So I came because I do the Philemon group. It'll be 2 years in April coming up at Black Vets for Social Justice. I do the Philemon group at a place called Ed Thompson for Veterans. I do the Philemon group at Queens VA. I do the Philemon group at the State Veterans Hospital, VA. State Veterans Home is called, right next to the other hospital. I've been doing this since that time. And I'm going to tell you something. I know doctors are great. Psychiatrists know what they're doing. They want to give you some medication. Hello. But once you get an understanding that that's your brother and that you can show empathy, you can help change his directions. And everything I do is non-clinical. I ain't got no doctor's degree to write no prescription. But what I have is what we all miss to use. It's called LOVE. So as a veteran, I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I served during the Vietnam time. I didn't go because my brother went, and we both was in the Marines. But I served him. Came out, and jobs was hard. But I started volunteering my time, and that's where a lot of my education came from. Volunteering time. Yes, I went to school. I even had a church. I'm a pastor. But that's immaterial to me today. What's important for us is to come together and corroborate, but have somebody I can call if I need something on your end. Somebody I can call if I need something on your end. Somebody I can speak to if one of you back there needed help on some end. We're not doing that. And when we do it, here's the biggest problem with all the drugs and stuff going on with the president and everything. When we do all of that, we wind up not getting back to the person. I'm going to tell you something. That's not respectful. We have to get things even more so. This government stuff is great, but the veterans, I find out, are suffering because they don't have someone to communicate, someone to help them when they get out, someone to guide them, someone to, and you know what? Here's the interesting thing. I never tell them what to do. None of the guys that come and meet with every Wednesday morning at 9:30 at 665 Willoughby tells the other one what to do. We all corroborate together. The key is, if you said something that hurted you, my question would be, well, how did you fix it? Brothers, sisters, veteran, you can't answer for them. Their moment is the worst moment in their life when they're stuck. But if they come into a place where they loved, they began to find answers. And a lot of times it's because other veterans are sitting there telling their story. So basically, I just came to drop by to tell you, and I'm part of NAACP in Jersey. I lived there for a while, doing groups, doing the same thing, and I came back here, and I haven't been involved in the last 3 years. But coming back here, this is New York. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I love where I came from. And I was hurt all my life by people kicking me, telling me no, telling me to stop. No, you can't do this, you can't do that. I found out one thing. When God gets a hold of you, y'all just hear me. When God gets a hold of you, your life changed. So as I get ready to take my seat, just let me give you one pointer. It might help you to find your pointers from before or find it now. I had twin girls. They're 34 years old. And when they were born, I was right there in the operating room. We used the operating room back then. And the lights got brighter. I had them both in my arms. It just got brighter. I knew the Holy Spirit was pointing right at me. And that light was what guided me from that day on. And so we got to find something to connect all of us with, that light will be able to shine, not just for you, for your brothers and your sisters also. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much. Assemblyman, you're still with us?
Probably gotta leave.
Okay, what we're gonna do, before he leaves, I just wanna see if anyone has any questions for the Assemblyman.
I'll gladly answer.
I don't see any, so,
Do you have a question?
No, I'll say. We're talking. I got you.
okay.
Again, Convent, thank you so much. Dawn, thank you so much. Madam Inez Dickens, thank you so much. Thank you. We'll be in touch. I have your card for Veteran Affairs. I love what you guys are doing. Let's keep it up. And even though I'm in the Bronx, like I said, I am a son of Harlem. I'll do what I can to help out.
I see one hand right here.
Yeah, I will send it to Noel and my office. If you ever need a meeting, my office at 910 Grand Concourse, right by Yankee Stadium, 162nd and Grand Concourse is my office. Yes. And you can reach me on social media. Also, is one of the easiest ways to reach me. So look up Landon Day 77, it'll come up. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. And sir, did you want to share? Oh, okay. So I'm just gonna, in my closing remarks, next month in January, we meet on the 4th Saturday. We'll be across the street in 348 Convent Avenue. And the NAACP, the president, would like to be here with us. So we will try to do that type of forum, but we may be across the street. But the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it prohibits unequal application of voter registration requirements, racial segregation in schools and public accommodation and employment, discrimination illegal. Signed into law, President Lyndon B. Johnson, it prohibited discrimination in public accommodation, schools, and federally funded programs, and is considered one of the most significant achievements in American history. Empowered by the government, the act gave federal court jurisdiction over civil rights cases and authorized the Attorney General to take legal action against those who violated the law. Ended segregation, the act outlawed segregation in public places like restaurants, hotels, and theaters. Integrated schools and public facilities, the law prohibited for the integration of schools and other public facilities. Prohibited employment discrimination under title of act. It became illegal for employers to discriminate based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Protected federally funded programs. It prohibited discrimination in any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So I just would like to give another applause for our panelists who have joined us on this afternoon. And what I would just like to do at this time, since there are no question and answers, I do see someone right here. We'll have them do closing remarks, but I see your hand.
No, Dr. Leslie Branch.
Okay, I apologize. Diane Burrows is from the League of Women Voters of the City of New York, and she couldn't be here or bring a representative due to the holiday weekend, but we will try to have her come in the future. But this is Leslie Branch of the New York State Department of Veterans Affairs.
Strategy.
Okay.
Let me see. We're closing at 2?
Yes, we are.
All right. So I'm a PK, not by birth, however. I was born in someone's heart. As a youngster, as the Lord would have it, He placed me with some families who poured into me and shaped me. And they put upon me a blueprint such that I followed it to the T. And so the blueprint was, you will go to school, you will get your education, you will get a career. Well, you will go to school, you will graduate, you will go to college and graduate. You will get a career, you will marry, and then you will have children. And so I literally did it in that order. Graduated high school, started college, but didn't really have the financial means to continue. And so needed to find a solution to buy me some time. So I joined the military. I initially was trying to join the Air Force, but they had some tests that you had to be able to lift a whole bunch of weight, and back then I was probably 100 pounds wet. Could not lift it, so joined the Navy. While I was in the Navy, continued taking college courses to award my degree. When I got out, I was 22. Had a community that I could that could buoy me while I worked to achieve my goal. And so, finished college, married in the same year, went to paralegal school because I thought I wanted to be an attorney, but it turns out I didn't. And the thing that actually caused me to not be an attorney was a pro bono racial discrimination case that the law firm worked on. So I worked at a White Shoe Park Avenue law firm as a legal assistant / paralegal. We took on a racial discrimination case where swastikas and nooses were being erected, whites only signs on the bathroom doors and the water fountains. And I'm like, 1964, why is this still happening? And so it was at that moment that I realized that if I were going to be an attorney, I couldn't be taking on a bunch of cases for free because, I got student loan debt and I got to eat and all like that. So transitioned out of the legal field, taught for a little bit at the college level, actually probably like almost 20 years. Went to policy school, the new school, earned a PhD, a couple of masters. But what that moment did for me was it clarified but also redirected me. So law is good, but the first cousin of law, policy, has a broader reach. And I decided not to be an attorney. I taught, decided policy was it. Started my own policy thing when it was COVID, because I was bored, right? We all had to stay home. And what I did with that policy think tank was invite high schoolers to be part of it, to write, to collect data. I taught them how to collect data. I taught them, they were living things. And so these issues are impacting you. How do you collect data about it? Taught them how to write policy briefs, then would connect them with BronxNet to have them be on as talking heads around policies that impacted them. Now, what is interesting at the policy level, and even at the legislative level, a lot of times those who are making laws about us, for us, are not us, don't have our lived experience, and then when we cannot, for whatever reason, live up to the expectations in those policies, we are poo-pooed. We are, y'all are not trying hard enough. No, it's, you've divested the community, first of all. You've made these pieces of law that without, it's like you've asked us to build houses without straws, to use a biblical analogy. And so that's how the Lord has redeemed the time, right? He is allowing me to carry out what I believe is my life's work. And it's not a linear path. And so there's something to learn from every experience that just enriches my ability to continue. Thank you for that question.
This time I didn't realize we have another panelist. That's Tim James from the Black Veterans Social Justice. Please give him your attention.
Thank you. It's great to be here in the sanctuary and give thanks to all the congressmen, assemblymen, the pastor of the church. I'm very thankful and pleased to be here. I've listened to most of the speakers before me, and just they pretty much summed up pretty much what we are going through today. There's been many laws that's been placed for us to have a comfortable life and to live life in harmony. With current administration, as we all know, things are changing. and things are getting bad. But the good thing is people are aware, and we're not blindsided by it. Coming from a current perspective, I'm still currently serving. I'm a veteran. I deployed a number of times to Afghanistan. Made it back safely. But a lot of my comrades, friends, associates did not. Those who have returned, to include myself, we have gone through a system, a process, as we mentioned earlier, that sometimes does not set us up for in the right direction. It may not, some of the tools that should be there for us for serving are not there and placed. We're not provided a silver platter. And those that have the information, it's pretty much, they run with it. So a lot of times for soldiers that return and are back to seek help, that help is not immediately there. And they start to wither, and there's something that goes on internally. We spoke about anxiety, we spoke about post-traumatic stress, all of that. So, reverse. A lot of times when we come back, and they use it as a word of reintegrating into society. You know, you're over there fighting in another country, now you have to come back, and we have to kind of like mold you to kind of like get you ready to come back into society. Kind of reminds me of when someone's incarcerated. And now we have to sit in front of you and at a panel, and you have to prove that you are ready to go out in society. And if it doesn't come across too correctly, deny it. So I, as a young, I would say, boy back then, I was raised by my grandparents, age of 3. My mother was very young, 17, very young to be a parent. And my grandmother and grandparents took full custody of me from 3 until I went off to college. But in between that, there was something that I had to follow house rules. House rules. You are going to do, as I say, as long as you're in this house, you're going to abide by my set of rules. Those were grandparents' set of rules. So growing up with my siblings, I was able to see them over the weekends. You know, I was born in the Bronx. I traveled here to Harlem, where my mom and the rest of my siblings lived on the weekends. But on Sundays, I was back on, I believe at that time it was the 29 bus that took you from Harlem back to the Bronx. So I experienced that. So I had to follow house rules, and I had to do this. I had to go to school, and I couldn't hang out on the streets. But if I did, I had to, where are you going? Oh, I'm going over by so-and-so. Well, we're the parents. That's how the structure of the house. But then after that, I was enrolled in a Naval Cadet Corps from age 9 to 14. And that was something that provided structure in my life. House rules, structure, Naval Cadet Corps. So I also encourage other family members to be a part of that system, program. You know, marching bands, you know, discipline, all of that stuff. Fast forward, I decided that I wanted the military to be a part of my life. instead of going into the Navy like the rest of my cousins did, or any other force, I decided to join the Army. And I ran into a recruiter. Basically, he wanted me to go full-time. This was my second year in college now. And basically I told him, I said, this is something that I need to finish college because that is my priority, to finish college. So I graduated, received my degree, and did everything right as I was supposed to. So we see how we have all the disparities and, injustices and, everything that is maybe tied into what's right for you as a military service member. A lot of times, soldiers, they put in claims that just pretty much goes to the wayside, and they don't really get the due diligence that's needed. Or sometimes they may get a smaller percentage, or sometimes they may get 100%. But whatever that matter is, it's still something that's deserved by that soldier. Whatever situation that they may be going through, mentally, physically, emotionally, etc., it is something that is deserved by them. So I heard earlier that was stated earlier that you were into real estate. And that is something that I found as a tool, because sometimes you have to do the things that are necessary for you to survive. You go to school, you work, you get your degrees, everything, and you find other sources to make ends meet. So we are 2025 laws are changing a lot of things currently that has been placed before us, that a lot of people fought very hard for us, all of us, for our rights, our human rights. And this 2025 agenda is really stripping a lot of those important things away from us. We have to have that vision. We have to keep that eyesight open to know and not be blindsided by what's going on. We have to. And what are between immigration, there was talk about DEI, all of the social services that are being taken away from even the workplace. We don't know if we walk out in the street, if we don't have our proper identification, what will happen to us? Will we be picked up by ICE or someone because we may speak differently or have a little tweak in our pronunciation because we don't have an ID? I was leaving work about 2 weeks ago on the West Side Highway, heading home, and I saw a car pulled over by 34th Street, and it was clear as day that what was going on. It was ICE. I'm not sure the details of what was happening there, but their identification and the jackets, everything just said ICE. And I said, there's another one. Why? How? So I just wanted to kind of like share some personal experiences that a lot of times we as veterans encounter some of the things that sometimes we don't even want to talk about, but the problem is there. The problem exists. You know, and sometimes it gets the worst of us, because if we can't communicate our problems, what we are going through, what we're feeling, and then it takes the best of us, what happens? Is this another avenue or route for suicide? I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen several times. And that's why, you know, I officially retire this coming August. And this will be 30 plus years of service. So I've seen a lot. I'll be 60 in a couple of months. So I've seen a lot happen. You know, someone that the anxiety takes so much of them, you know, where they take that trigger and turn it the opposite way on themselves. And then you, me, other veterans who actually visualize that, that's a lifetime scar on us. Because now, not only does the family have to deal with that, but everyone who, you know, the battle buddy, we like to call each other battle buddies, you know, their battle buddies have to deal with that. You know, Afghanistan, so many box cases, everything, numerous. We always had to be on call because a family member lost someone. So I just wanted to stand before you and just kind of like vocalize the summation of, you know, what actually happens to some of us. Some of us get lost in the system, you know, until we actually pulled back and redirected. But there's a lot of veterans out here that really need help. I go to the Veterans Hospital down Lower Manhattan, 23rd Street, and I just you look in the lobby and the sights that you see, it's really sad. It's heartbreaking to see so many, whether it's old, younger, whatever, age is not a factor here. They're there, sleeping on the bench somewhere. That's because they're out in the street. The Veterans Hospital open, that's a place that they can rest their head for the day. So we need help. And I just wanted to share that personal insight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, when I asked for veterans to stand, why didn't my panel stand? You all shared that you're veterans, but no, I see a question here to my left, and let's give another round of applause for Honorable Inez Dickens. Thank you for staying with us on this afternoon. Okay, I see a question here to my left. Oh, you have a question, yes. Mm-hmm.
I think, and you can piggyback onto that, but I think a lot of just for starters, a lot of the resources, you know, a lot of times there are, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of resources out there, but there's a lot of soldiers or veterans that are not privy to that information. So if you don't know how to navigate the system and use that, then that's a lost factor.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to get ready to close out, and I know I heard you mention DEI, and I am on the board of the National Action Network, and we have DEI rallies each and every Thursday. I think it's been over 100 each and every Thursday at noon. And I have a friend who's actually in the VA hospital in the Bronx. That's Leonard Bentley. He's a member of the Frederick E. Samuel Community Democratic Club, and we try our best to get to visit him. We visited him Veterans Day weekend, and you know, it appears that he's getting good care there. But once again, I just want to thank everyone who's come out on this afternoon, and what I would like us to do, I would just like to close out with May the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent, one from another. Go in peace. Yes. Thank you, everyone who came out and stayed. Yes.